And I know what's something that's top of mind for a lot of users and a lot of general consumers who may not be overly familiar with crypto is what are some of the real world problems that we're solving here? So would love to hear from both Keone and Bryan. What are some of the most pressing real world problems that crypto's in a position to solve through specifically the lens of LayerZero and Monad as well?
I mean, I'm happy to start from our side. Like the way that what got me into crypto. So again, like first touch 2011, but like really heavily in from 2013 onwards. And what drew me to the space early on was just like very strong libertarian skew, right? It was like this concept of the banks sort of suck and are irresponsible with your money in general, and just with like the state of the world, and that self-sovereignty was like this powerful tool, and that you still need to live inside of a world with like rules, like you have to pay your taxes and like do whatever else, like there's some other things, but you really should have the ability to have full control over your money, to be able to pay anybody as you want to pay, to be able to interact permissionlessly with all of this, right? Like that really resonated really deeply. And I think that was always the thesis early on about like, what, why does the space matter? The space matters for permissionless access to all of this and like self-sovereignty. I think those are like the two biggest things. So when you talk about what you're actually disrupting, early on, it was like, okay, we're going to disrupt like money, which is like a really big idea, right? Of just like literally disrupt money, disrupt like the banking and financial industry. And I think it's evolved now to being like, hey, this technology, like then you had Ethereum, you had like programmable smart contracts, you had a bunch of things that like didn't exist with pure Bitcoin. And now it became, hey, you can actually make like much more interesting financial primitives and just structures that can be broadly useful to the world. And so when you talk about like the biggest things that you're disrupting, I think it still comes down to that, right? For like disrupting finance and money is a big enough problem to solve. But I do think in doing so, you're unlocking a huge number of other things that are really empowering.
Yeah, that's a really, really key point, and would love to get Keone's perspective on that as well. How is Monad poised to address some of those issues?
Yeah, I think that there are a number of interesting applications for crypto. I think probably the easiest one to understand is payments, because two things. In the Western world, credit cards are extremely prevalent, and credit card companies clip huge fees from every single transaction. Like, it's crazy thinking about a business where you can charge 3% of the transferred cost, which itself is a huge amount of money, and clip that coupon. And then, there's some on the back end, some of that value is paid out in terms of credit card points. But it's just a massive, massive business. That's honestly actually a big cost on businesses that small businesses and large businesses alike have to bear. So I think payments in the developed world is very clearly, ripe for disruption, although it's also not easy, because when you think about the network, this proof of sale, the other POS network that credit cards have built, credit card companies have built, that's huge. It's really hard to accept other kinds of payment. And crypto actually solves this. Crypto is a way where anyone with their phone could pay for a service and actually, avoid this middleman. So that's extremely exciting. And then I think in the undeveloped world, or just more generally, I should say, in the part of the world where credit cards are less commonly used, it's actually crypto that's used quite a bit for payments. I think especially in the Tether space, for some reason, like Tether is really big in certain parts of the world. So yeah, I think payments are clearly a killer app for crypto, but that also means that we need to be able to transact at the scale at which current payment processing systems actually process transactions right now, which means having a network that can actually keep up with that level of load. And Monad is poised to be that network with 10,000 transactions per second of throughput. That's one thing. I think more generally, personal finance is an area where crypto can clearly provide a lot of value to many end users. So basically making DeFi like the standard for personal finance, whether that's banking or trading, borrowing, lending. There's definitely a lot of potential in the personal finance space, but we need these systems to be able to deliver a better, or at least equal, or ideally better experience compared to using centralized personal finance tools. So that means reducing slippage, improving cost of execution, making it so that the cost of trading on chain is comparable or better to the cost of trading in a centralized environment. And that means taking slippage from 1% or 2% or 5%, which we frequently see in DeFi right now, getting that to single digit basis points, which again requires a really performant environment so that market makers can quote very tightly and compete the spread down, and ultimately give a much better execution experience for users. I feel like I've been talking for a while, so I'll just kind of very quickly touch on a couple of other categories. But I think identity, community, and then just more generally settlement for all kinds of transactions, whether that's settlement for stock trading or settlement for transfer of assets, like buying and selling a house or car, what have you. Those are also all areas that clearly have a lot of potential in the future.
Yeah, and even just I was looking about that as you were talking. Like if you think about like the tax of the credit cards on like the businesses, ultimately then consumer, like the combined market caps of Visa and MasterCard, it's like $1 trillion business, right? Like right there alone, like $1 trillion taken out of sort of largely small and medium businesses to sort of have this system that functions. Yeah, and fully agree on the settlement side.